This is a McGill Leadership Podcast. Like most leaders, you are probably currently in transition. Maybe you are new into your role, or you are about to start a new job. Or maybe it's your manager or someone in your team who are new in their role or about to start a new job. If this is you, go to selfempowermentinstitute.com and register for our workshop on leadership transition secrets. All successful leaders I know pay close attention to the transition into their new role because they don't want to compromise their career after a move that is supposed to propel it. Go to selfempowermentinstitute.com to register for the Leadership Transition Secret Workshop today and secure success for your new role.
So the first thing is I like to use the notion that it's vulnerability. So it's really an ability that we need to develop because it doesn't come naturally to many people, especially many leaders, because we have the impression that we have to be on the ball, know all the answers, and just be that person that everybody can rely on and turn to. So when we can really admit what we know, what we don't know, it's actually very liberating, and it makes us more confident as a leader. It sounds funny, but admitting that we don't know, admitting weaknesses, is really putting everything on the table. And that's when we're showing up as our authentic self. And my favorite question is...
My guest today is a leader who always gets me to ponder every time I speak to her. And you will understand what I mean once you listen to this episode. Jackie Roberge is a partner at Mindsmatter, a consulting and training firm based in Montreal, Canada, that supports employees, leaders, and organizational well-being. As a leadership coach, Jackie uses a whole-person mindfulness and value-based approach to help people and organizations thrive. Jackie also teaches authentic leadership at the McGill Executive Institute. In my conversation with her today, we discussed the importance for leaders to align with their authentic self, their values, and their purpose. Without further ado, let's welcome Jackie Roberge. Welcome to McGill Leadership Podcast. I'm so grateful to you, Jackie, for joining us on our podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Excellent. And Jackie, this is a podcast about leadership. It's for leaders and entrepreneurs to give them some practical tools and tips about leadership so that they can improve in their leadership skills. And I do this because I truly believe that leadership is at the heart of everything, and every organization's success really rely on leadership. And before we get into more detail about it, would you mind introducing yourself to our audience and how your interest on leadership came about?
Yes, certainly. So my name is Jackie Roberge. I'm a leadership coach. I'm also a life purpose coach, and I do mindfulness-based facilitation. So all sorts of workshops like emotional intelligence, psychological safety, but based on mindfulness practices. And I'm also a yoga and meditation teacher, although I don't do that as much now because I'm busy with the coaching and the facilitation. So how I got into leadership coaching was a bit of a, when I talk about purpose, I say we can either get called towards something that we are meant to do, or we can sort of get passionate about moving towards something. So in this case, it was actually, I was called towards it. I went to McGill Executive Institute, and that's basically learning, continuous learning for executives. And I presented some of my workshops like mindfulness at work, emotional intelligence, and they ended up coming back to me and saying, well, we would actually like you to teach our authentic leadership course. So that was sort of my first foray into teaching around this notion of authentic leadership. And then they also hired me to do some facilitation for one of their big clients. And I ended up coaching many of their leaders. It was a worldwide cohort that was getting trained, and I ended up coaching some of those leaders. And another completely different situation, I was asked to give workshops for government leaders. So I just kept getting pulled in this direction of working with leaders. And I'm like you, I'm passionate about leaders have such a great role to play, and they're so pivotal in terms of inspiring, bringing collaboration, changing corporate cultures. There's just so many roles that leaders play that are so important. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. So what would be your definition of leadership?
I was thinking about this, and it's almost the opposite of what we would think. For me, it's not about creating a following and being this sort of big image of what we think of a leader. To me, it's really empowering others. Yes. It's bringing out the best in people, leveraging their strength, and also inspiring them to tap into their purpose, tap into the drive to contribute in a meaningful way. And then, yes, there's a portion of it that's setting a vision, and you want to bring everyone along in a collaborative way to make that vision happen. And to me, leadership is not about having all the answers. It's about really bringing good questions, bringing good people on, and then giving them the tools and the training and the support and the encouragement that they need to really thrive.
No, absolutely. I agree very much. And to me, it's all about the people, and it's, the definition that you gave and the example you went with, it's all around people. You talk about empowering others, inspiring others. And these days you are very much talking about compassionate leadership. Can you tell us a bit more about that, and why specifically compassionate?
Yes, so there's some research that came out this year. It's done over a long period of time it was part of the Potential Project, and it was done with over 350 executives. I think it was 15,000 leaders in over 100 countries. So really internationally based research. And what they found out was that new expectations for employees are to feel connected, to feel valued, and to feel cared for and cared about. So to me, if we go in to look at the leadership role with these expectations in mind, it's a necessary component to be compassionate. So compassion creates the connection, it creates the capacity to really tune in and want to support and encourage our teammates, our employees. So compassion to me really is necessary for taking and making tough decisions, but doing it in a kind, caring, and really honest and open way. That's part of this compassion is being able to make hard decisions, but in a human way, and really connect with the people and what they're going through as these decisions and might be affecting different aspects of their life, to really connect with the people.
Absolutely. And I think there must be something to do with what we've lived through over the last 2 years as well. People are discovering a different or new sense of purpose, and they want their work to be more meaningful. How much do you think the pandemic has impacted that field of leadership and changing the role of leaders?
I think it's done actually really positive things in terms of the role of a leader. One, it is gave leaders the opportunity to be vulnerable. So I did some interviews about halfway into the pandemic, and I said, "What's going on? How do you feel as a leader?" And they were really saying they were uncomfortable not being able to tell their people, "This is our clear vision. This is where we're going, and I've got you guys." They had to get up there and say, "Look, there's so much uncertainty. This is where we're heading. We need your support. We need your input. And it really was a humbling experience. So I think that was beautiful. Secondly, I believe that it helped leaders care more about the person. And when I do my coaching, I call it whole person coaching, because when you show up at work, you're not just showing up as your role at work. You're showing up as a whole human being, as a parent, as a sister, brother, as a caregiver, whatever you're dealing with. And what the pandemic did is it gave leaders a view, literally a view into the world that their employees were living in. So that, you might have seen people dealing with kids or whatever might be happening in their personal life. And it really allowed leaders to connect with them on a more personal basis. And I think it deepened connections and really gave leaders an opportunity to see their employees as they are, whole people. And I think finally, like you said, in terms of the employees, I think it did give people inspiration to kind of reflect on what's really important. And life is fragile and we don't know what the future holds. And am I doing meaningful work? Am I where I want to be, and leveraging my strengths and leveraging what I'm passionate about? And if we're not bringing passion to our work, then there's, and the amount of time that we spend working, there's definitely an opportunity there to find more alignment with our values and with our what we're meant to do, our purpose in life.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And I was at training last week or earlier this week about change and in leadership. And one of the things the facilitator did very well was sharing some of their personal stories and creating that connection and allow themselves to be vulnerable. Yeah. And at the end, all the participants were thanking him for doing that. And he said, I'm doing this so that you are able to do the same with your team members and show that vulnerability. But it's difficult sometimes as a leader to show that side of us. And some people might feel like, oh, no, this is work. No, we're not allowed to show that much emotions. How do you take your clients and people you coach through being or allowing themselves to be vulnerable? What would you recommend people do as practical steps to create that connection?
Good question. So the first thing is I like to use the notion that it's vulnerability. So it's really an ability that we need to develop, because it doesn't come naturally to many people, especially many leaders, because we have the impression that we have to be on the ball, know all the answers, and just be that person that everybody can rely on and turn to. And really, like you said, when we are vulnerable, it creates deeper level connections and it creates more psychological safety. It gives other people permission to really share and not feel like there's going to be negative consequences from whatever they're sharing. And this doesn't mean that you need to share it all, but you want to share at appropriate times in appropriate ways that creates the connection and like you say, opens up for, you're basically a role model to how you want others to be able to open up. And I think what I do with my clients that is helpful is, one of the coaching trainings I got was with a coach called Brendan Bouchard, and it's a high performance coach. And he talks about this new definition of confidence. And it really is about feeling okay to say, I don't have the answer. And instead of trying to hide your weaknesses and not be seen, and there's this whole imposter syndrome, like I'm here, but if anybody finds out that I'm not as good as they think I am, then I'm in trouble. That is just actually exhausting. So when we can really admit what we know, what we don't know, it's actually very liberating, and it makes us more confident as a leader. It sounds funny, but admitting that we don't know, admitting weaknesses, is really putting everything on the table. And that's when we're showing up as our authentic self. When we talk about authentic leadership, it's like, here I am, and this is empowering. So when we are our most authentic self, this is when we're our most powerful self. Even though it feels vulnerable to start with, once you start experiencing like, okay, it's okay to show up just as I am, then it's self-reinforcing. So it
No,
really is an important practice for leaders.
absolutely. No, that's right. And if I wanted to go along this line, showing your whole self, being the authentic leader, allowing yourself to say, I don't have the answer. And at the same time, sometimes or most of the time, people will be turning to the leader for comfort or for reassurance. Where do you put the limit between allowing yourself to be transparent, authentic, and also showing some level of strength for supporting the team through a certain level of encouragement?
Yeah, I guess to me, the showing up with compassion and authenticity, that is the strength. And when you can really tune into the emotions and deepen your understanding of the struggles of what your employees are going through, that's again when you're playing one of your most powerful roles. So it's a paradigm shift from needing to know all the answers to wanting to support, encourage, connect with, validate the feelings of my employees, and also ask the good questions. That's much more important to me than knowing all the answers. And that, as a leader, when you can turn to people and involve them, and that's also what happened during the pandemic, is that answers and ideas started to come from all sorts of places in the organization. And I think it really opened up leaders to say, okay, good, I don't need to have everything all planned out. I can rely more on my people. And that's a really big part of this vulnerability and opening up and creating a collaborative environment that the results are really powerful.
Absolutely. And I think also we go through years where the psychological pressure for employees, but also for leaders, is getting really high. How do you recommend leaders maintaining their well-being and protecting their psychological strength and presence to allow them to be better leaders?
Well, it all starts with self-care, I believe. If we are not, as a leader, if we're not, start with a very, very basic, if we're not sleeping well, that's like bottom line, that there's improvement there. And when we don't sleep well, what happens is we end up, it's got this spillover effect on where we don't feel like exercising as much. We turn to coffee and junk food or whatever it is, and we're just not on our game. Like when we are tired, we can be more judgmental, impatient, all those things. So, and again, going back to Brendan Bouchard, when he coaches people, if one of the first questions is, are you getting 8 hours of sleep? And most of the time the leaders will go, Brendan, yeah, I don't want to talk about that. I'm here to be coached on my leadership. And he's like, no, this is fundamental. So sleep, are you taking care of yourself in terms of exercise, eating well? So the three basics, but they are, as Brendan would say, they're common sense, but they're not always common practice. And leaders tend to put the needs of others and the organization before themselves in many cases. But I believe that is a mistake, because we, as leaders, everybody counts on them to be showing up at their best. And that takes discipline, and it takes courage, and takes maybe setting limits and boundaries. For me, when I coach people, one of the best solutions I find is get a morning routine. Get up a little bit earlier, do your walk, do your meditation, have a healthy breakfast, whatever it is, but don't start your day in a rushed way. And the more delay you put in terms of doing exercise and things for yourself, the more chances that something else is going to come up and that you're not going to be able to give yourself that self-care that is essential, foundational for good leadership.
No, I completely can relate to that. I remember when I started to get into the space of reading more and studying more leadership. One of the things that got me started was a book by Hal Herald called Miracle Morning, where it talks about the morning routines. And I started to practice the Miracle Morning, and through that, one of the steps was reading. And I started to read books.
Good.
And one thing led to another. Then got introduced to Brendan Marshall, got introduced to Tony Robbins, to all the leadership books with John Maxwell. And then, that morning routine is what gave me the space to read more, to exercise more, get more conscious about, what I need to do with my body, and then obviously looking after my mind. And so I absolutely agree. You're right. Looking at this person.
Yeah, I call my workshop Own Your Mornings. So really that's the time that usually, as long as we get up early, nobody else can take that time. So it's really sacred time.
Yes. And I guess one of the space in the morning is also allowing us to reflect on what we want to do, what's our purpose in life. What's your definition of purpose, and how important is purpose for leadership?
My definition of purpose, of life purpose, is really discovering the difference that you're meant to make in the world based on your unique talents, skills, and life experiences. And when people tap into that, they really tap into a greater level of passion, of drive, and of energy. So I believe if there's not a good, at least a partial alignment between our purpose and the purpose or the fundamentals of the business, what the business is about, if there's not some sort of alignment, then we're missing out on an opportunity for greater fulfillment, feeling like our life has more meaning, that we're contributing more. And that's a fundamental human need, to contribute. And that's how we find fulfillment. It's not the big bonus and the checks and all the benefits. It's really, those things can make us temporarily feel happiness or joy, but the real fulfillment, the lasting fulfillment, comes from that alignment with doing what you feel is a meaningful contribution and really helping the greater good. That's a fundamental human need, to contribute to the greater good. So it's to me, it's really important to find that alignment, and more companies are starting to define their purpose, which is really great. And then it's more clear when you're looking to lead a company. Okay, is that a company that I'm aligned with in terms of my purpose and where they're going? So it makes it easier.
No, absolutely. No, I agree. But then, if I'm a student of yours and I come to a workshop and you say, Max, you need to find your purpose, and I'll say, okay, Jackie, how do I do that? How do I go about what are the practical steps that I can take to help me, identify or find that purpose?
Well, definitely it's tuning into your passions. So anything that really lights you up. And sometimes that's what lights your heart up, and sometimes that's what breaks your heart. So tuning into, if there's something an injustice in the world, and you think, I really want to change that, and you're just like so passionate about making that change, it's likely related to your purpose. Another sign is, like, when I started meditating, I got so excited about the benefits. I wanted to share it with the world. So when you have that kind of feeling like, oh my gosh, I've discovered this and I want to share it, it's a sign that you're aligned with your passion. And really, anytime you're doing something where you feel you lose track of time, you feel like you're in the zone, all those kind of things, it's likely that you're doing an aspect of your purpose. And the good news is we are all doing our purpose naturally, because it is something that comes naturally to us. But what happens when you actually sit down and do, I have a bunch of exercises that I help people actually get clarity around purpose. Once you put your finger on it, then you can actually see, okay, now I'm doing my purpose, and you can see the impact, the kind of the before and after. This is the way the situation or the person was before I did my purpose. This is how it was after. And it just heightens our level of meaning and realizing that the impact that we have in our work. So it really makes it more fulfilling when we can pinpoint it, and then we can really lean into it as well and develop it.
Absolutely. And so then through your work and your coaching, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you see the leaders are facing today?
I would say that one of the biggest challenge is not only a stressed out workforce, but just kind of overwhelmed, fatigued, discouraged, with the whole COVID, with the economy, all these things. So I think one of the things is just supporting the mental health of employees and being able to either put programs in place or create, I talk a lot about psychological safety now, just creating cultures where, again, it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to admit that we are feeling overwhelmed or anxious. And when I talk about the compassionate part, basically empathy is when you're feeling the emotions of the other person, and that's important because they feel understood or heard. But compassionate leadership brings it to the next step. It's, how can I help? Now that you've shared this with me, I feel what you're going through, I feel your pain. How can we move forward? How can I support you? And that's really, it's empowering and inspiring to be able to do that for people. And a lot of times we feel as leaders like we have to know all the answers in order to broach a subject. So if somebody's having a difficult time and feeling overwhelmed, we just kind of, okay, I don't know how to fix that because they're on a big project and they have to deliver. But really, my advice for leaders would be, don't shy away from really head-on discussing, connecting with individuals and really hearing their concerns and connecting with their emotions, and not worrying about having all the answers. That's, again, not the most important thing. Just allowing them to share and having that deeper connection is really powerful. And then it get the question, how can I support? How can we co-create a plan moving forward that will support you and the organization? Because bottom line, the leaders also need to drive performance. And really, compassion is about doing it in a way that's human and caring at the same time.
No, absolutely. How can I help? I guess that's one of the greatest questions that leaders should keep in mind and go on and ask their team. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I know you do a lot of interviews and podcasts and training and coachings, and you get a lot of questions from your audience. What's the one question that you wish people ask you but they don't ask?
What just comes up spontaneously for me is the power of beliefs. If somebody would ask me, Jackie, how powerful are the beliefs that we have about things, about ourselves? And this is something I use a lot in my coaching, is when we have a belief about something, basically our ego wants to be right. So it will literally see and hear things in the foreground that support our belief, and other things that don't support our belief get pushed to the background. So we really want to challenge ourselves in terms of, what beliefs am I holding? Again, like I said, about myself, about the economy, about my people. And my favorite question is, are those beliefs serving you? Are they helping move you in a direction that's positive towards what's important to you, towards your objectives? And if not, how can you replace those beliefs? How can you start forming new ways of thinking and opening up to other possibilities? Another thing that I ask when people share their beliefs is it true? And often it's not true. It's just a perception. And if it is true, is it always true? And it really helps them dig down to deeper levels of reflection. And so I think that's one of the most important things. Self-awareness is also really important. And if we're not self-aware, then we don't even know that these beliefs and patterns are playing in the background and influencing so much of our perceptions. So that would
absolutely. Is it true? Is it always true?
Yeah.
How we know of that?
And is it serving you? Yeah.
And is it serving you? Is it serving you? As we get toward the end of our conversation here today, Jackie, again, thank you very much. What are 3 books that you recommend our audience? It could be one, but if you.
Okay. I'll give you 3 that kind of cover different things. The one would be Conscious Capitalism. And that's a book about Whole Foods and John Mackey. It's written with Raj Sisodia, and it's just a wonderful example of a leader that was really a visionary before his time. And the story is really funny because he dropped out of school and he ended up becoming an amazing leader beyond what business schools can teach people to be. And it was all through hard work and reading and mentorship. And so it's a really, really inspirational leadership book. Another that I love, and it's more related to purpose, is The Big 5 for Life. And it's a really captivating story, easy read, but really powerful in terms of that whole notion of bringing your purpose to work. And as a leader, in this book, the leader actually develops companies and divisions based on people's passions and desires to contribute in a certain way. So again, that's super inspirational. And the third book would be The Untethered Soul. And that would be more on the spiritual side. So that's Michael Singer, one of my favorite spiritual teachers. And there's just a lot of wisdom in the book. It's a lot about self-awareness in terms of our mind and how busy our mind is and how often the thoughts that are there are not serving us. So that's and a follow-up book to that is The Surrender Experiment. If you like The Untethered Soul, his next book is A Surrender Experiment, which is a really fascinating read as well. And he became, just a quick note on the Surrender Experiment, he became the CEO of a company that sold for, I think, over $3 billion without any clear direction that's what he wanted to go towards. He was really surrendering to life and really tuning in with what he was being called to do in the moment. So it's a really inspiring book as well.
Wow, no, that's great. I've got a really good selection here for the coming weeks, month. Thank you so much, Jackie, for that.
For your morning routine.
For my morning routine, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so where can our listener find you if people want to get to know more about you and your work? Where should they go?
They can go to LinkedIn. So Jackie Roberge on LinkedIn. I'm also now a partner at Mindsmatter. So you can go to mindsmatter.com and or you can just connect with me on LinkedIn. It's a safe way.
Excellent. So thank you so much, Jackie, and for parting with us so much wisdom today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. This was the Maxiao Leadership Podcast. Thank you for joining us. To listen to future episodes, you can subscribe on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Until next time, keep being the leader everybody trusts and respects.